Welcome, 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 everybody, to Evolution Now. This is episode number 19. I'm Damien Chinappi alongside JJ Wolf, and our guest today is a writer. She's a producer and a director. She has written, directed, and shot episodes of the Negotiators streaming series for the Reveel network all around the country, and she's also a published author. She has a tremendous work ethic and incredibly strong dedication to the craft of storytelling and the people around her. It's our pleasure to welcome to the Evolution Now project, Gabby Rosson.
Thank you for having me. That was very nice. I have all the feels right now.
All the feels. Thank you for being a part of our 19th episode.
That's awesome.
So what we like to do is start off with a quote, and it'll kind of lead into a conversation that centers around what we're going to talk about. And so the quote is, the Bhagavad Gita tells us that we have a right only to our labor and not the fruits of our labor. And so much of our work as artists go unseen, and it's less about the outcome and more about the output, because we create whatever we're creating, a story, a script, a film, or painting, it adds to our craft. So we can control what we create, not how others see it. So when I float that quote to you, Gabby, what comes to mind?
A lot of things, but actually it reminds me of a conversation I was just having with another artist who had sort of hit a bump in his road where he was feeling like he hadn't accomplished all the things he wanted to accomplish in his journey. Sort of speaking to that, the whole fruits of your labor thing. And it reminded me, and I reminded him, that the journey is the destination. And so learning to really love the moment, staying in the moment, enjoying the work is probably the most important part, because there are no guarantees after that. And like you said, that's the only part you can't control, what you're doing. So that's sort of what comes to mind, the journey, and learning to not thinking of the future, just being in the moment, enjoying the journey.
I love that so much. What a thoughtful response too. Yeah, it is, the journey is the destination, and there are no guarantees. So it's so important and it's so vital for us to enjoy the process and enjoy the work that we're doing and be unattached to the outcomes. In the branches of yoga and the philosophy of yoga, there's a term, it's called aparigraha, which is about non-attachment. And I think that's such a vital part of creativity, is being unattached to the outcome and really enjoying the journey. What do you think, Damien?
No, absolutely. It's, if you're thinking about the journey, you can't think about the active engagement of the craft you're working on. And I think that's what Gabby was saying is you're present. You are here now in the moment, pushing your limits and extending your capacity. So obviously, Gabby, you've been a writer and a director for a while. What's something you do consistently that keeps you sharp, that keeps you in that artist's eye?
That's a very good question, and an interesting one in a way, because I think for me, a lot of it is just, I'm helpless but to do it. There's nothing I really do to prepare to do it. It's just who I am. And I realized a long time ago, this is who I am. This is what I do. It's the thing that makes me happy. And when you really are something, you don't have to try to be it. It is who you are. And what's great about that is that no one can take it away from you if that's who you are. So you don't have to try to be it. And even if you go through periods of life where you're stagnant or you're not doing that thing, doesn't matter. You're still that thing. You're still that person. That's still what you do. So, it ebbs and flows. For me, it's all of my creativity is very organic and fluid. It's something that an idea will come to me, or a story is just so compelling that I have to tell it. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm really answering your question, but that's sort of my process is very fluid. Like, for example, She Who Dared this year, I wasn't planning on doing that. I had no idea this was going to happen this year. But through following my passions, it's what happened. And I think, I'm a big believer on knocking on a lot of doors and walking through the ones that open. So not getting too hung up on which ones open and which ones don't open, but just sort of following the breadcrumbs of the path and letting it reveal itself. So I sort of have the same philosophy that I think a lot of artists have, which is that it's already there. It's already in existence, whatever it is, a song, a film, a book. You're just sort of tapping into it, or you're the translator of that thing that was already there, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. And you said something that really resonates with me. In this age of social media and marketing and everybody being loud and showing what they're constantly doing, like you said, if you are something, you don't have to try to be it. So a lot of people have to post all their projects, and like that's part of the game now. But sometimes it's the work that you don't talk about that really adds to the depth of your craft. Like a cat doesn't have to go like, look at me and my catness. It's just a cat. It is that. It doesn't need to show, it doesn't need to tell people that. And same way with the artist, being able to engage in your work and to have it for you. And that way, when you practice it in private, you can thrive in public. I think that's a Tony Robbins quote, but that's exactly it. That's like the essence of creation. Now, you mentioned She Who Dared. Before we get into that, I want to ask you, what's the earliest source of inspiration that you found in your life? Or what is an early source of inspiration that kind of led you on the path you're currently on?
I would say, the predominant form of art that I'm doing at this point in my life, because I've done music. I did music for a decade and a half, and now I've been doing film for 5 years. And I think that film for me is the perfect medium because it combines all of the things I love: the music, the writing, the visuals. And so I have often thought about, well, where did this come from? And I'm a mother and I have kids. And I think I was just having this thought the other day, like, pay attention to what your kids are into when they're young, because that's the thing that they're probably going to end up doing later in life. Maybe, like my son, he loves his computers and video games and things like that. And he's not like he also likes like card games and things like that. So I'm like, well, I wonder what career that will be. I don't know. We don't always know. But in my case, there's a few things actually that I know directly impacted where I am now as an artist and influenced that. One, I was a latchkey kid, so I had a lot of time to be alone. And my babysitter was the television. And so I spent a lot of time watching TV and movies and just literally eating that, which is not great because, we all know, like, the TV is going to rot your brain, at least that's what we were told when we were kids, but I didn't care. I was addicted to it. I loved it. And the other thing was that I really have to blame my mother for who I am today in a lot of ways. Blame is a harsh word, but so she moved us to LA when I was 7 years old, and she moved us a block off of Hollywood Boulevard. In fact, some people who are familiar with Hollywood will know where I'm talking about when I say we lived right behind the Roosevelt Hotel, which is across from the Mann's Chinese Theater. So we lived in that big white apartment building that's probably still there to this day. And what I would do, after school was I would take my couple of cents and I would run up and down Hollywood Boulevard going into all of the tourist shops, and I would buy movie stills for like $0.25. And so that played a big part. And that I actually got to be in a film when I was 8 years old. Horrible film, sorry, called Vampires on Bikini Beach. And I only got to do one movie because my mother, it was a 16-hour day, and she was like, heck no, never again. No child of mine is going to work. And I was like, please, I'll buy you a house. I really wanted to do it. So moving to Hollywood at a young age, being a latchkey kid and not having a lot of time with anyone else except the entertainment. And then also my mother would take me to movies all the time. And those are my favorite memories with my mom. I mean, I've seen a lot of great films. I'm old, so, I've seen a lot of the classic films in the theater when they first came out and can still vividly remember it. So I think that's really where it started for me, started very young. And it just took me all this time to find myself here, because nobody's like telling you how to do this. Nobody's saying it's possible. It seems like it's a very elusive field. And when fame is the end goal, it seems very hard to grasp. Fortunately for me, fame is not the goal. It's getting to make the art. So I'm very happy doing something I love right now. But that's the answer. That's the very long answer.
That was beautiful. That was so beautiful. And finishing that thought with doing what you love. I mean, it's said too many times in pop culture, but it's, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. I just loved hearing you talk about your childhood there. I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of, inspiration and some challenges and the way that it formed you and helped you find this path in your life. We never really understand where we're going in life until we get there anyway, and it's fun it can be fun to look back and think about that. Like last night, for some reason, I was kind of up for a few hours. It just, like, I had my eyes closed. I thought I was sleeping when I wasn't really sleeping. But I had all these, I was like thinking about my childhood and the neighborhood I grew up in and just having these kind of memories of childhood. And you just touched on some things I could really relate to too, because I was totally a latchkey kid and the TV was my babysitter as well. I was the man of the house. I was an only child with a single mom, and so I had a TV in my bedroom. I had a TV in my bedroom when I was 8 years old that somebody gave us, and I was always putting the wires together to get the free cable access or whatever from the neighbors or something. And yeah, so much of that I could relate to, and it's just really beautiful to hear your journey with that. I actually bought a minivan when I was 20 and drove from Boston, where I grew up, straight across the country, and I was in LA for about 2 months, just sleeping in this minivan and making friends and crashing on couches. But I remember there was definitely a few nights where I parked my minivan in Hollywood and crashed out in the back of it. And I remember walking around that area and being somewhat enamored, with like the stars on the sidewalk and the kinds of tourists coming from all around the world. And, the impact that TV and film has had on our culture is just it's unfathomable, from the references that we get from, like, I grew up watching a lot of The Simpsons, and they touched on every aspect of pop culture, politics, like humanity. And I feel like in some ways, because I was obsessed with watching The Simpsons when I was a kid, I feel like I got these great downloads on humanity, as ironic as that might sound. They're touted now as like predicting the future on some of these like world events and like, Trump getting elected. But it's just amazing how beautiful cinema is, and the art of the moving picture. And I definitely, so many memories of going to the theater, the theatric experience, going to the cinema, and yeah. Damien, what are your thoughts on going to the cinema? You go to movies much? You did in the past?
Yeah, no, I mean, latchkey kid, watching. I remember like during the summer when my parents were working, me and my sister would watch pop-up video on VH1, and that would always be a cool thing. But the cinema, to me, people say, oh, streaming is going to kill the cinema. The cinema is never going to die, because the cinema is an escape. It's completely different than your home. You get out of your house. You're amongst people. When you go to a big premiere, like I went to Oppenheimer in IMAX, and that was the top cinematic experience of my life. It just swept me off my feet. I felt all the emotions, left the theater being like, wow, I love film. And it's such a the films we see as kids, the things that we absorb as children that we're naturally drawn to, play such a big role in our lives. And like you said, JJ, the destination becomes clear when you get there, not when you're in pursuit. I mean, sometimes, and I like what Gabby said, paying attention to what her kids do. That's very wise. The fact that you're doing that is kind of speaking to your own inner child. And the importance of the moving picture can't be understated. I mean, we learn through stories, and they lie to us in the most real of ways, and that's never going to go away. JJ, you wanna jump to the next question?
Oh yeah. So, Gabby, I would love to hear your thoughts on you've already touched on this quite a bit, but what was your first creative spark and what made you want to write films and tell stories through that medium?
So I had some people have like lost weekends. I had a lost decade, which was my 20s. So after LA, my mother moved us to Seattle during the height of the heroin epidemic in Seattle, the Kurt Cobain years. In fact, I still remember I was in the smoking section at school, even though I didn't smoke. I was a good kid, believe it or not. And someone ran over and said, "Oh my God, Kurt Cobain's dead." And like, we were all just like devastated, right? But by 19, I had fallen into all of that crap myself, and didn't get sober till I was 28. So, needless to say, I had dropped out of high school, so I had to really start over at 28 years old. I got my GED, and I had 2 kids at this point. And really had to sort of dig myself out of this trench that I had fallen into through my own actions. And it took a long time, but so I ended up going to college, and that's really where I always say college helped me find my voice, but more importantly, helped me learn how to use it. And so by the time I got to my senior year in college, I was an English major, which I went in to become an accountant, and I came out an English major. And I had done a lot of liberal arts studies in college as well, like theater and philosophy and all of that stuff. And so, as any English major will tell you, they make you read a lot, like a lot. Like one semester, I had 18 books I had for this one class. So when it came time to do my honors thesis, I said, I refuse to write another paper. I'm not doing it. I'd written hundreds of papers. College to get my bachelor's took me 6 years because I was a single mom. So lots and lots of papers. So in protestation of writing another paper, I made a film. And that is how my film career began. So it was unexpected, but once it happened, I was like, oh, yes, this is what I've been moving towards all along. Very subconsciously, I kept taking classes that were sort of getting me there, like documentary filmmaking, poetry, playwriting. Eventually I took a screenwriting class, and that unlocked the key, because what I didn't know, and which is so important, is every film starts with a script. No script, no film. No script, no budget. No script, no cast. It's all about the script. So learning how to write a script, and I was horrible at it when I first started, and I still have a lot to learn, but that was the game changer. And the stories were always in me, though. I was a storyteller since before I could talk. I was scribbling in my books and writing what I thought were operas, literally. And, my mom was a telemarketer, and I used to sit under her desk and write these little books and staple them together, and, horrible little stories about little girls whose balloons popped, and, just whatever. So the storytelling was always there, but I had to learn the tools. So the inspiration, it was less of an inspiration and more of a tool gathering, experience, finding the way to express the inspiration that was already in me, I guess.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Express the inspiration that was already in you. Now I know why Damien suggested having you on the show. Your story is really inspiring and really interesting and very unique too. And that I can already tell that you have a certain level of boldness in you. You seem very sweet and very organized at this point in your life as well, to be able to be doing all that you're doing, and going through college as a single mother. But by saying, "Hey, I'm not writing another paper, I'm making a film." I mean, what a bold move, and one that obviously was the right step that propelled you towards what may be, or clearly is, your destiny. To be a filmmaker.
Yeah. I the one thing I wish for everyone is boldness. fail hard, like, be wrong. It's okay, but just, go for things. I see so many people just like holding back in life and sort of waiting for permission to do the things they want to do. And also being held back by what they don't know. You learn as you go. So if you don't start, you never learn. So I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment, but it's also something that, I try to encourage other people to, go after what they want. And you're going to put your foot in your mouth lots of times, but as long as you're humble and can apologize when you're wrong, it's fine.
Absolutely. And look, you lead from the front. Certainly do. We've worked together a lot, and it's always like there is that boldness. You're very sweet, but there's also like a mama bear in you. It's like, don't mess with my team. And I love that about you. It's that protective courage to just keep driving forward. And like, you're one of my favorite people because of where you came from and what you've overcome and what you consistently do in spite of all the things that could seemingly hold you back. So I want to ask, what role has pain played on your creative eye and the stories you have chose to tell, if any at all?
Everything. I mean, again, it's I used the word failure just a second ago, and I think that it's from your failure that you learn. And again, that's something I learned in college. My whole life prior to getting to school, I was always running from failure, and I thought it defined me. I didn't realize that it was the thing that allows you to win. In the end, you have to lose sometimes in order to win. So, I don't know. I mean, we could get super philosophical about, pain and pleasure and, the balance, the yin and yang of life and experience. But I would say, pain is everything. It is a source of inspiration itself, because every single day I wake up, I'm grateful that I'm not that person I was 17 years ago. Every single day from the day I got sober to now has been a gift. And, you're an actor, so actors, and when they get certain roles, they have to go back and look at painful experiences to try to draw from that emotion. So nothing wrong with pain, nothing to be afraid of.
Profound. Yeah, everybody is going through a battle that we know nothing about, so we got to just be kind and not judge one another. And, it's I've definitely had a lot of pain in life, and there's been moments where my younger years, I used to think, nobody can relate to this level of pain, and then you get to know people and you realize that, wow, oh, wait, you experienced what? So, we're all carrying these, we've all got arrows in our back, and we just keep marching on, leading from the front, as Damien had just said. There's so many things I want to ask you and respond with, and, as we develop this podcast experience where we're guiding the conversation, we do have questions. So the next one, I'll bring you into, which is, you hold monthly networking events and screenings, and you've played a big part, a big role in fostering a sense of community in the New England area. Where does that drive to bring people together come from?
I mean, the selfish answer is that I have no family. I don't have a relationship with my mom. My father died when I was young. I have my children, but I water their well. They don't water mine. So the film connections that I've made, they are my family. So, and also just, going back to that, like, wanting other people to be bold, wanting other people to know there's a possibility to achieve the things that they want. When I started the networking group, actually, let me backtrack just a hair. The networking group idea started here on the Cape. A buddy of mine put it together. His name is Manx Magyar, and he actually filmed my first film, my senior thesis film. And so we became friends, and he decided it would be a great idea to get a bunch of people on the Cape who were making film together. And so I was a part of that group for probably a year or so. And I was always helping out, wherever I could. And then I was going to move off Cape. It didn't happen. It is going to happen in about a year and a half. I'm 100% moving. But it didn't end up happening. But what I had done preemptively was I had said, we got to have a networking group like this out there. Because if I move, I don't want to lose this. So I created a sister group. And full disclosure, we haven't met monthly for probably 6 months or so. We've sort of moved to quarterly now, or holiday events, or even just piggybacking on other people's events and showing up en masse to support somebody else's event. There's a lot of networking happening in New England. There's writers groups. There's other just general networking. But what I loved about it and what I saw happen so many times were the connections that were made and how beneficial to people those connections were. So I saw people get funding for their films. I saw people find actors for their film. I saw people, share their crew calls and crew up their projects. And that was not surprising, but really eye-opening. And it made me a firm believer in networking, which, I had never really, I never really realized how important it is, but it absolutely is. I think Damien and I talked about this once, like you're as good as the company you keep, right? So always have people that know more than you or have already accomplished something that you would like to accomplish. Surround yourself with those people and learn from them. So the networking is great. And I just love people, and I love building my chosen family one person at a time,
It's amazing. And speaking of that sense of community, you have an event on October 8th, a test screening about your latest project, She Who Dared, that centers around Lois Weber. So tell us about this woman. Who was she? Why was she important? And when did you make the decision that you were going to tell her story?
Oh boy, we only have an hour, right? Okay. So Lois Weber is the greatest female filmmaker you've never heard of. She was prominent during the silent film era. She made somewhere between 200 to 400 films in her lifetime between the years of 1908 and 1939. She was the first woman in America to make a feature film. She was the first woman to own her own production studio in her name, or any name. She was the highest paid director in the industry, man or woman, in 1917. She helped start the Screenwriters Guild. She is the first female mayor in our country. She ran on an all suffragist ticket and was the mayor of Universal City. I could go on and on and on. First woman to have full frontal nudity, first man or woman to use full frontal nudity in a film. There's more. If you go to her wiki page, it's going to take you a while to read through it and to not just read it, but to digest all of this woman's accomplishments. And so it's pretty amazing that a woman who did so much, no one's ever heard of. I can't remember how I learned about her. It's frustrating. I wish I could. I wish I could remember what it was that led me to her, but I found her on Google. And I said, oh my God, I have to write a movie about this woman. But I said, historical drama, period piece, 1920s, can't afford that. So I just put it in the back pocket of my mind and shelved the idea. But, I figured someday when I got lots of money to spend, I'll come back to it. And a few months after that, I was on the phone with Katie Killery, who's a local New England actress, very talented woman, but also just one of the kindest people I've ever met. So humble, so genuine. And we were on the phone talking because she had been really mistreated on a film set. And I was just there to provide moral support. You know, it was two girls talking, yeah, that's horrible, screw that, you know. And something just compelled me to say, well, I'm a director. She's an actress. She had a crappy experience on set. Let's just go make something. So I said, what's your dream role, Katie? You know, loaded question. And she, I mean, I literally had no idea what her answer to that was going to be because every actor is different. And she described Lois Weber to a T. She said a woman from history who changed narratives, who was forgotten. And I knew immediately she's talking about Lois Weber. I said, I got the perfect person. Hold on. I said, I had to go Google her because I had already forgotten what her name was. But I described what I was looking for and she popped up. And I said, Lois Weber, this is the one I found. Look her up, Katie. Katie starts looking her up and we're just like falling all over each other practically. She's like, oh my God, she's a woman of faith. She started her career in the theater. That all resonated with Katie. And for me, I think what resonated about Lois was that she was a woman director and she was a writer and she was a producer and she did it all. And I, unfortunately or fortunately, try to do it all too. You know, I do a lot of times my own production design, my own casting. Like I wear way too many hats. This film has put me in touch with the right people that I trust. I no longer have to wear every hat and I have delegated to incredibly talented people. But so I really did relate to Lois Weber as well. So Katie and I were just like, all right. And I told her, I said, look, this is huge. I don't know how we're going to do this. So we're going to have to piecemeal this. And so we did. We sort of set up a plan. I said, all right, we're going to make a micro short and then we're going to try to pitch that to try to raise money for the short. And before we had even screened the micro short, I had shown it to someone and they said, I've got your money. And so they got us started. The budget ended up doubling. And then we had to go back and find more investors. But so what we now have is a proof of concept about Lois Weber. It chronicles a very pivotal moment in her career where she sort of loses it all. You know, in a lot of ways, she's the quintessential tragic character who, you know, rises to such greatness and prominence, and then sort of it all falls apart. And so that's sort of the moment we're picking up on in our story. But there's an A story and a B story. So another thing about Lois is so Lois, they're not sure what she died from because it was 1939 when she died, but her surviving family thinks it was Crohn's disease, which is like stomach ailments and like a digestive problem. So before she died, she had written a memoir. And after she died, her sister tried to get this memoir published and no one would publish it. And then in the 70s, it was stolen. So we have no idea what Lois Weber wanted us to know about her journey in film at the birth of the industry. You know, it's not like somebody writing a memoir about their career now. We're talking about someone who saw film evolve, saw it be, you know, created, was a part of that early creation period. And that's all gone. So my film is about a dying Lois Weber writing her memoir. And we see the moments of her career where we do flashbacks, where we go into what she's writing about, what I think she was writing about.
That's a beautiful structure.
It works.
It reminds me of like the Notebook or something. I don't want to tease that. I don't want to say. I just watched the Notebook actually for the first time earlier this year.
Yeah, I could talk forever about Lois. It's a dangerous topic, gentlemen.
It's good though. I mean, it's a story that needs to be told, and it's just like you're the perfect medium to channel it through. So,
yeah, you're coming, right?
100%, yeah, 100%. October 8th, 2 to 5. So the October 8th test screening, you have like a live band, you have so much going on. Like, talk to us. I mean, you have a great producer mind. You can organize people, and you're very disciplined, and you have a great attention to detail eye. So talk to us about that October 8th event and everything that's going into it.
Yeah. So for the premiere, we are screening the 23-minute proof of concept, which we do hope that we will be turning this into a feature. And we are screening it with a live 15-piece orchestra. And we're getting pretty meta with it, because in the silent film era, there was no sound, and there was typically a live musical accompaniment. So this whole film and the process of getting to this event, the way we're presenting the film, it's all been what I was talking about earlier, just going through the doors, following the breadcrumbs, letting it unfold, just grasping, pulling out of the air what was always there and what was meant to be. Because I didn't know when we started this journey I was going to present it live with an orchestra. That just sort of happened after we had finished shooting, and we were talking about it. And it was sort of wouldn't it be cool if we, did the score live? I want to shout out Ian Roshkin, who wrote the score. Even that was a very last second thing, because I had no idea what we were going to do for the music and was actually really distraught about it, but just sort of knowing it would work out. And I asked him sort of at the last possible second if he was interested. And there was a connection for him. His daughter has Crohn's disease. So it was an automatic yes for him. He felt compelled to be a part of it. So on the 8th, he will be there. The composer will be there. The orchestra will be performing the score live to film. It's all going to be timed out so that hopefully they make all their cues. It's going to be very stressful for me. So I'm just going to be sitting there I hope this works. But we're also recording the score that morning in the theater. And that score that we record will then get dropped into the film for film festivals. And so it won't always be a live performance of the score. This is a very special event for that reason. Yeah. And there's other stuff too. There's going to be red carpet photos and networking, obviously. And then we'll do a very brief Q&A afterwards.
That sounds like a super amazing experience. It's actually my birthday. That's a great time of the year to do that.
I was going to say, you should fly up, but if it's your birthday.
Yeah, my nephew is getting married around that time in New Hampshire. So there's a small possibility I could make it. I'm not sure, but it would be fun. It does sound profound. There's a few things, there's so much I could respond to about that. I mean, the process of, taking inspiration from the era of silent film and doing a live score. I mean, that is brilliant. The fact that you had, a musician, a composer who was able to jump on board, who, the connection to the topic there with the Crohn's disease. I mean, it's amazing how things just weave themselves together. It really is. It's like plants don't try to grow, they just grow. It just happens. Everything happens so naturally. And I'm sure that event is going to have so much liveliness. And like you said, networking. Actually, earlier we were talking about networking. You were talking about your networking on the Cape and building the sister community. I actually met Damien at a Hollywood East actors party maybe 8 years ago or so. And we've kept in touch over the years, and just, sometimes having a call, just like, hey, what are you working on? What's going on? It's just, mano a mano, let's make it happen. And inspiration. And are you familiar with the Hollywood East Actors Group? Is that still going on up there? I think it was started by our friend Erica Derrickson. It's kind of tapered off now. At some point, there was like 15,000 people in the Facebook group.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I haven't heard a lot from them. They're probably still a group, but I think the peak of its decadence has come and passed with Erica. And for a second, I was one of the administrators, and I threw a get together, like a summer fling thing, which was fun. But these groups, they have a shelf life to them, and they're important. And but the thing is, it's like it's easy for them to go away because it just takes that dedication, that conscious effort of driving and pushing and really wanting to bring people together, which is a testament to your life, Gab. You bring people together, and like this event is nobody's doing that type of stuff. Nobody's bringing in a live orchestra. Come on now, that's next level.
Oh man, it is. And I mean, I hate to say this, but a part of me is like, we have a big ask here because we're going to ask the community, the people who attend this, to support the feature film endeavor. And on some level, my hope is that they're so moved by the experience that when the time comes to fundraise for this, that they will want to help. And not just because of that, but because of her story as well. And I would be really remiss if I didn't say sort of the underlying motivation for really telling her story is to help rewrite history, film history, to include women, because what we have going on right now is an industry that actually has more women in it than men, but women are outnumbered 4-1 in positions of power, which is fine, except that unfortunately, most women who enter this industry, like I did 5 years ago, are under the impression that there is a glass ceiling and that they cannot achieve any of these positions of power, or that when they do, it's novel. What I'm arguing is that women have always been there, and that women don't need to ask for a seat at a table they helped build. So, and historians are on board with this too, because if you go to film school, they're not going to teach you about Lois Weber. They're going to talk to you about D.W. Griffith, Cecil B. DeMille, Charlie Chaplin. They're going to leave out a slew of female directors. Dorothy Arzner, Mary Pickford.
No worries. There's so many.
There's so many of them. Lois may arguably be one of the greatest among the women, but they were there, and they were there en masse. Lois has this really great quote where she says, because the industry was so new and everybody was trying to figure out the technology, no one noticed whether or not a woman was getting a foothold. And so there were a lot of women there. They helped build the industry. And in her case, she's right up there with D.W. Griffith as being considered the person who invented narrative filmmaking. So when films first started, it was like, ooh, look at the train, or, oh, look at that silly man falling around. It was very vaudevillian. She said, no, film can be so much more. She told stories. She got super intellectual with it. And again, we could talk about this for hours, and I won't do that to you. But so it's very important to tell her story and to let people understand that it's not just the fathers of film. There's mothers of film. There are women who helped build the industry as well. And I'm hoping that it will really inspire the women who are in the industry now to understand that you can do it. You can do it. It's been done. And we've got to get these stories into the history books, because they're not.
It's so important. I mean, it's so important. And we need, I just think we need more balance in all areas of life, and bringing more female voices to the forefront is, it's what we need to do to really honor the true history of things. And, at the end of the day, it seems there's so many illusions or sort of like falsified, history, the way we look at things. And at the end of the day, life is men and women. There's, wherever there was a man, there was a woman. Wherever there was a woman, there was a man. It's like, so it's beautiful that you're bringing this true history of one of the founders of film. And like you said, she was developing, narrative, like, hey, not let's just look at this train or look at this funny thing, like, hey, let's actually tell some beautiful stories. There's so many things I want to ask. I mean, I can't wait to see your feature film when it comes out, in the years to come. I think it's going to be, I know it's going to be an absolute masterpiece. The other thing I wanted to say is that from my background in digital marketing and also fundraising via crowdfunding, one thing that I like to remind people, and you're probably well aware of this concept, but is that crowdfunding particularly is a pre-sales platform. And there's a fun thing where it's like there's a lot of leverage, right? So like you might sell a hat on your merchandise store for $25, but you might be able to sell your hat on your crowdfunding page for $50 because it's in the name of fundraising. And so whether you're selling tickets to events or names and credits or vacation packages or custom art made by people on your team, all of those kinds of things, you could raise $20, $50, $100,000 through something like Indiegogo or Kickstarter if you have a solid plan. And obviously there's a budget of 20 to 40% maybe for the overhead of those things that you're pre-selling in order to raise that money. But, if you were to delegate that to some, part of your team, that could be one leg in in this multifaceted fundraising process that you're going through. I'm not sure if that's something that you
No,
want
that
to
is
more
helpful.
about.
That is helpful. And I think, that's what we have to start looking at when we get back. So we're going to LA to the American film market in November, and we're screening the film there. And we sort of went in thinking that, we're going to find somebody to fund the feature. And that's like a needle in a haystack, finding the person that sees the proof of concept and wants to fund it. But what we can do is we can line up potential distribution for the feature. So anyone who says, that's really good, come talk to us when you've got a feature, those become contacts, which then we can come back here and say, hey, help us raise the money. We already know these distributors. So we're going to make the best out of our time there, even though we technically don't have a product to sell. And that's really what the American film market is for selling pictures. We're going to go anyway. So yeah.
You're going to make contacts and you're going to learn a lot. And that's the most important thing. We've already touched on like the power of networking. Gabby, I wanted to ask you, because you said that you were an English major, and you said that your reference was that at one point you had to read 18 books in one semester for one class. I want to ask you if you have any, and then you also used the word digesting information regarding the Wikipedia page about the story of this woman in this film that you're creating. Do you have any tips on digesting information well, or for being able to read quicker, or like how to get through that level, that volume of material in an efficient way and actually retain information?
I have ADHD, and reading is actually hard for me. Sometimes I'll get stuck on the same paragraph because I'll keep getting distracted. So I would say what really helped me store information and digest it was always flashcards or underlining things in books that I really liked. So yeah, reading can be hard. I always joke about that. Reading is hard. And yeah, but more importantly, finding, retaining the information. You have to figure out what works for you, because we're all very different learners. So what worked for me was flashcards, but also telling someone else. So anything I read that I like, I immediately go find someone to talk to about it. That would be my advice. Read, underline, flashcards, post it on Facebook, talk to someone about it. And
Beautiful.
Keep it.
And you talk about it so much that it...
Sorry, Damien.
Yeah, you talk about it so much that it becomes part of you, just like with Lois Weber. And one thing I just wanted to say about creativity, and creativity is a feminine aspect of consciousness. Like, think about women. Babies are born in the uterus, they grow, and then they are born from women. That is the creative seed. And the fact that women have been brushed under the rug in terms of the historical narrative of film is such a tragedy. And if this could be the film that opens that up, how amazing would that be? Because like you said, JJ, men and women, like we make the world go round. There's a unity, the masculine and the feminine. When you harness both powers, then you have that brilliance. You have the chaos of creativity and then the masculine aspect of ordering. And when you put those things together, that's when you get Oscars, baby.
Katie and I both really feel that if people leave and Google her, we have achieved exactly what we set out to do. We just want to raise awareness. And I want to say one more thing about it. Lois, unfortunately, was a victim of a changing industry. Part of the reason her career declined the way it did was that during the talking picture era, when it transitioned from silent to talking, Hollywood also conglomerated. They bought up all the studios. They started putting actors under contract. The unions were built. And so what was a thriving film community full of independents, it became an inhospitable environment for the independent. And that is also something I really want to address in this film. So I try to tell people this is not like a feminist agenda film. If it's anti anything, it's anti Hollywood, which is ironic because I would love Hollywood to make this film, but I've said to myself they probably wouldn't because they don't like telling on themselves. And this would be a story where they really they pushed her and lots of other people out. Because they took it over and they turned it into a good old boys club. So there's a lot going on. And I think people will get a lot of different things out of it. And true feminism is about equality, not superiority. So I definitely don't want anyone to feel alienated or like we're bashing men, because we're not doing that. We love men. And we just want to be in the history books. That's all,
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. There's so many questions on my mind. There's so many thoughts I have. I can't even. I'm at a loss for words. Actually, I'm so inspired. Just the filmmaking has always been something that inspired me. And I've been a self-employed video producer for 10 years. I made a lot of corporate videos, a lot of events, some music videos, and I've wanted to get more into filmmaking. But the scripting part, I haven't really gotten so into the writing, but I have little by little. And so, I'm just excited that we have this platform to discuss things and to enjoy these conversations and, turn over stones and find out what people are working on. And, because to create, it's such a monumental thing. It's like, you look at a skyscraper and you go, how the hell did somebody build? Like, how is that even possible? And I have that feeling with films because I went to a 4-hour workshop with the late Jim Germanic, wonderful human. And I went to a 4-hour workshop with him. He was, giving gems. He had produced a few, Hollywood films. And one of the gems that I got from that workshop was that he said it took 530 meetings to produce one of his films. And that metric, it could be a lot more than that or a little bit less than that. But, the idea that it takes so much communication and so much planning to make these things happen. And, and you just keep 10 steps forward, 5 steps back, 10 steps forward, 5, you just keep trugging along.
Embracing that journey, enjoying the journey. It takes time. Yeah, can't have the instant gratification with filmmaking. It's not possible because there's pre-production, there's principal photography, and then there's post-production. Woo! Yeah, you have to be real comfortable with the journey and the process and knowing that there's going to be hiccups and barriers all along the way.
100%. And I just got to say, the way you speak on Lois and your passion and your drive and your toughness and your own story, I think you're the perfect person to usher this in. And hearing you speak and even just seeing you got that whole Marilyn Monroe vibe going, which I really dig. I just, I can see you making waves with this thing. And there's such a strong energy around it that I know you have confidence, and you should have all the confidence in the world from a guy who's not a part of the film, who's just your friend and a big fan of yours. It's like you are in prime position to make a huge splash and to inspire a lot of women and men, because as you said, this is an inclusive film and you're going indie versus Hollywood. And it has this feel to it, like this wave behind it, where it's like once that first domino falls and you get that $200K or that $1 million to do that feature film, they're going to unleash a monster.
We're all employed. You're coming up here to Massachusetts, JJ, and you're helping. We can get the money. We're all employed. That's how I look at it.
Love it. So let me ask you, Gabby, when you hear the name Evolution Now for our podcast, so we're not talking about Darwinism or any of that stuff. We're talking about like growth development. When you hear Evolution Now, what comes to mind?
I feel like we've used the word journey a lot today, but the personal journey that we're all evolving in the moment, the now, growth. The word growth comes to mind.
Very good.
Succinct. What's as we're coming up to the end of this hour here, we've been so lucky to have you on the show. What's a simple idea that you know to be true in your life?
Oh my gosh. Simple idea. I don't know if this is appropriate, but today I'm relaxing. After we end our call, I'm pulling a Will right now. I'm business on top. I've got pajamas and slippers on the bottom. Okay. So I am having a forced relaxation today. And that's simple in that we are constantly striving and constantly doing. And for some of us, probably most of us now, we don't know how to relax. So if you're like me and you don't know how to relax, then you just schedule relaxation. And I'm hoping that honestly, we can do this for a couple of days because I really need it. So that's a simple truth is take care of yourself. And if you have no time to relax, make time to relax because the body manifests all sorts of crazy stuff when you don't take care of it. And no matter how good your intentions are and how hard you're working, if you don't take care of your temple in your house and give your mind time to rest, eventually it's going to blow up either in sickness or a mental breakdown, or maybe you'll lash out at someone in anger. You know what I mean? So that's my simple truth today is forced relaxation is important.
That's a good one. That is good. I love that. Are there any quotes that you would like to share or any upcoming events you would like to shout out? Probably the one in early October.
Obviously, I hope everyone will come to the Somerville Theater on October 8th from 2 to 5 p.m. to see the She Who Dared live orchestral event. But I was just talking about this quote with somebody this morning, and it is my favorite quote of all time. It's from Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, which I highly recommend everyone read. It's a very simple book. It's almost written like a little child's book. It's translated from, I believe he is Spanish or Portuguese. I should know this. But in the book, it's about a young boy who's seeking his fame and fortune. And he meets an alchemist and he goes on this incredible journey. And I won't spoil the ending, but the alchemist says to him that when someone really wants something, all of the universe helps conspire to help them achieve it. And I've always taken so much hope from that quote because it simply, to me, simply means that your passions and your wants are good and that there is a benevolent force that is also wanting you to achieve those things.
Amazing. And that's great, and what initially the whole universe conspiring to help you, usually you're met with a lot of negatives and you have to overcome them. And it's like the toughness that unlocks the door that allows you to be worthy of the fruits of the labor. And to wrap it up full circle, it's like, don't worry about the outcome, focus on the output. Mm-hmm. And that's a great way to bring this episode of Evolution Now, number 19, to a close. So, Gabby, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. We look forward to seeing more of your story, and specifically She Who Dared, as it comes out. And where can people find you on social media?
I'm on all the regular platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You can just Google Gabrielle Rosson, and that should bring you to all of my platforms. Or
Beautiful.
Gabrielle Rosson Films. I have a website too, GabrielleRossonFilms.com.
Absolutely wonderful. And thank you again. Hopefully our audience will find, subscribe, follow, and get to see more of your work, because it is brilliant. You have a lot to say, and you say it with such style. And JJ, any finishing thoughts, closing thoughts?
It's just amazing. Every episode keeps getting better and better, and this is definitely one of the best ones yet, if not the best one yet. I feel totally inspired, but I'm somewhat of a film nerd, and so to our audience out there, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this and learned some stuff, and it's been a pleasure having you on, Gabby. And until next time, keep growing, everybody. Keep growing.
Keep growing.